Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to more Spec Corvette Series racing action right here on the National Racing Network, where we are jacked up for this one. It is going to be a doubleheader kind of day, and quite frankly, it's going to be a pretty darn fun one here, too, as we get ready for Spec Corvette Series action, kicking things off from Sebring International Raceway, as we are on board with Cecil Stevens. My name is Chris Graham. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with us here this afternoon. Got to say a huge thank you to Mr. James Watson for joining us in the booth as well. And I tell you what, James, we've seen Sebring before. We see it a lot in the iRacing world. It is an entirely different beast when you start putting big, massive American iron out there. This one is going to, quite frankly, be a blast to cover here today.
Oh, it's going to be incredible. It's an honor to be able to call a race at one of the most, not just one of the most historic tracks in American history, but honestly one of the most historic tracks in world motorsport history. It's a dream come true. Just waiting for the feed to pop up right now.
Oh, well,
currently
yeah, there you go. Now we'll get you the feed here, James. But yeah, so I mean, as we, we've got to look, and we're on board here with, as we mentioned, Cecil Stevens. Cecil's got really an interesting view for us here, because we're going to be able to see the handwork and where he's looking in the upper right-hand corner. If you look at the upper left-hand corner, that's looking out the backside of his race car, then obviously the big full-screen forward view. But he's not the only driver that we have here with cameras on their race car. Let's see. Who do we want to look at next? Let's see. Let's take a look. We have a look, excuse me, out the 53 of Frank Reinhardt. He is carrying the Reinhardt Racing on board for us. He is just getting ready to get himself up towards the grid here. Also able to go on board with, let's see. We'll pick up the 66R of Joel McGee. He's carrying the Team Watson Racing setups onboard camera here this afternoon. Also have Victor, let's see. Also have the 86 of Marino Reyes waiting to get out onto the grid. Marino carrying the Villa Tile onboard camera for us here today. Marino out of Miami, Florida. And I tell you what, James, it's really cool. We've got a pile of onboards here that we're going to get to show everybody. And Sebring, let's talk a little bit about this place, because it is crazy fast. It is, especially in these cars, but it's also going to be fairly technical as well. They're running the full international circuit, the same layout we see in the Sebring 12-hour.
Yeah, it's incredible, honestly. Like, you would have thought that a series like this, that they would have done the club layout, but they're going, nah, that ain't for us. We're going to do the big thing, and I'm so thrilled. Like, we get to see them go through the entire circuit, and it's gonna be a blast. I can't wait to see them go through Sunset for the first time.
Yeah, Sunset is going to be, quite frankly, wild to see from the onboards here. And picking up the comments here as well. Let's see. Ole Thorderson is checking in. He's one of our West Coast guys. You'd think we'd be seeing him at Sebring, but instead he's tuning in from Tennessee. Thank you very much for checking in with us, Ole. Also, our buddy Sebastian Kinder is checking in. What's up, Seb? Hope you are having a fantastic Saturday afternoon. should be seeing the cars roll out here onto the grid in just a moment. But here's the other thing, James. We're going to finish this race up. We have a very short break. Then we turn around, and we are going cross-coast, country, border to border and coast to coast. We're going to take on Sonoma Raceway.
The motherland!
Yes. I know you're jacked up to call a race from Sonoma. I am really looking forward to this one as well, because we talked about how classic and world-class of a race course Sebring is. It's the exact same thing with Sonoma Raceway. It really is. I mean, there is so much history around that place that we just get to have an absolute blast calling a race from each of these historic road courses.
It's awesome because Sonoma is just one of those classic circuits. It's perfectly etched in the beautiful foothills of wine country. It's almost completely untouched by modern regulations. Like they have it set up to where it's got all the safety features, all the runoff, but it's still got that classic feel of you're having to work really hard not to crash there. Like, that's what you want from a racing circuit, not a whole bunch of arbitrary track limits that you have to follow. And you're a millimeter over the line, that's a penalty.
Yeah, that's the big one here. And let's talk about that a little bit, because the Spec Corvette Series does have, I'm going to say, some fairly strict rules in terms of what these drivers are and are not allowed to do. Let's pull up our rules of the road graphic for you here. It's basically, they're going to be 97 to 2004 C5 Corvettes. Very limited modifications are permitted to these cars. You have to put a roll cage in it. You have to put a racing seat, harnesses, all that kind of stuff. And you're allowed to sort of gut the interior. You do have to have the stock appearing dash and all, as we're going to see these guys start to head out onto the racetrack. But that's basically it. You got to weigh 3,200 pounds at a minimum, stock LS6 or LS1 engine, and they will dyno you to 380 horsepower as an absolute maximum. As we'll bring up the ambience here, the ambiance, if you will, of these screaming Corvettes. Because as they're getting out on the grid, quite frankly, we didn't want you to have to listen to the pre-race conversations that some of the drivers were having, but oh my goodness, these cars sound so good. Let's very quickly get you through the starting lineup here. Now, again, and this is, I do have to preface this by saying this is the information that we have available to us. But your starting grid, quick time and qualifications out of West Palm Beach, Florida, with a lap time of 2 minutes 23.922. It is Ken Mantovani on the pole. Lining up alongside will be the 86 of Miami, Florida's Marino Reyes. Row number 2 will have Mark Bird, about 1.7 seconds off the pace, lining up alongside of James Davison. Big drop off there to car number 4, starting on the outside of row number 2. Row number 3 will have Cecil Stevens out of Valrico, Florida, lining up alongside the 53 of Frank Reinhardt. And on the final row will be the 54R, a driver change, Victor Leo lining up in that car, and it will be Joel McGee in the 66R lining up to his outside as we get ready to go. This is race number 2. Race 1 already in the books. That one goes to the number 4 of Mantovani, followed across the line by the 222 and the 6. Just waiting for the timing and scoring to update here, and we'll get you some of the we'll get you all of the timing graphics up here on the upper left-hand corner as well. Ole Thorderson checking in saying Sonoma race should be a good dogfight. Josh Carroll, John Wynn, Craig Dale, and Mark LaCour. I can't wait to see these guys rip around that place. The West Division races have been fantastic this season. I am jacked up to see these guys rip around Sonoma. We're looking forward to that one. But first, we got to get race number 2 for Spec Corvette Southeast region rolling here. And let's see who else we have. Let's pick up. This will be at the front of the field. Let's go on board with your pole sitter, Ken Manavani. And you can hear him. He is almost coasting around this place. Also, the other, let's see, well, quite frankly, we got a bunch of race cars that we can get here, too. We'll go on board with Frank Reinhardt. He's going to be starting a little bit further back in the field, but going to have some great looks here from a, quite frankly, a variety of race cars. Going back on board here with Cecil Stevens as the field is doubled up. Love the fact that on the Sentinels, you get all sorts of information here. Not only do we get speed, we get lap number and positions and all that kind of stuff, but we also get things like track maps, which are incredibly helpful to those of us in the booth, because quite frankly, we have no idea where these guys are on the racetrack. We don't have access to any outside cameras as they are through sunset and they are going to get ready to rip. Off the final corner, they'll come under the Michelin Bridge and see the green flag. And there it is. Green flag is out. We are underway here at Sebring.
Oh boy, they're already 3 wide.
Big hard onto the binders down into turn number 1. Inside lane's got to hug the corner. Outside lane's got to give them room on corner exit, though. It's a tricky run down here to turn number 2. You basically have to be down to single file. Brakes squealing all over the place. As we go on board with Reinhardt now.
Whoa. You said you have to, but you don't need to. They sure didn't listen to that.
You're at least supposed to get down towards single file.
It's a suggestion.
Hop on board here with Marino Reyes.
Whoa, what?
Wow. Oh my goodness.
If you're ever gonna see one.
Yeah, you ain't joking there, James. Holy cow. Reyes battling a little bit further back. So there you go. Now we have your timing and scoring available to us. Unfortunately, this is kind of the best we can do, at least temporarily anyway. We're working up a system that, quite frankly, I'm pretty excited about. It's going to get us access to all sorts of data. Let's go back on board here with Cecil Stevens. I tell you what, this is a nice view, but we're going on board here with the race leader now, because this is exactly what these guys are feeling. It looks so smooth from Cecil Stevens' camera. The race leader is showing you exactly how bumpy it is around Sebring.
is exactly what I wanted to see going through Sunset. Like, we've all seen it. We know how bumpy this corner looks on TV when you're watching a prototype looking like it's going off-roading through that corner. And now we get to experience, look at that. Like, that's enough to make you motion sick.
Yeah, a little bit.
And you're going through it at like 150 plus miles an hour. It's incredible. This is not for the faint of heart.
Going on board now with Marino Reyes. He's around James Davidson and up to the second position. Trying to work around the race leader here, too. This is the battle for the lead. We just showed you Manavani's camera. He's the one bobbing and weaving and bouncing all over the place. In fact, I thought we lost him there for a moment, but
the little camera that could, it's working hard.
Little bit of a bobble for both cars. And that's, I mean, James, we talk about it, but this is sort of like the Spec Series that we see run on iRacing. It really is about the talent of the driver and who's going to make fewer mistakes. There's only so much horsepower you're going to top out with at the end of the straightaways, so it's more about managing speed and making sure the car exits really well. Is possibly a problem here for Reyes.
Yeah,
Reyes way off the pace.
Yeah, it's kind of demonstrated what we were talking about. Like, there's a lot of fast sections of straightaways on this circuit. So if you make a mistake and you're not able to exit the corner for as good comparatively to the other cars on track, you are going to lose a mountain of time, because just like you said, you don't have as much horsepower to work with as some of the cars that you're used to seeing run this track. So if you screw up, you are screwed. Like, one little mistake and look at the distance he has now. That is obscene.
There's contact through Sunset. Wow. The 54 of Victor Leo. And I believe that was the 9 of James Davidson. Ever so slight puff of smoke through Sunset. They're going to stay drag racing down the front stretch.
What?
Wow, big drive off the corner here for Cecil Stevens as well. He may have a shot to get around Davison.
Yeah, that other class car is sure making things spicy.
Well, yes, that is James Davidson, who, and if I remember correctly, it's either James Davison or Paul Davison. Yeah, there's two of them, similar names lined up right next to each other. One of them's a Toyota GR86 that is also an ST3 class car. So, in theory, should be fairly close on pace. Six minutes and 25 seconds and 2 laps are in the books here. Gosh, the racing's so good, I forgot to check the comments. Eduardo Reyes checking in, giving Marino some love. Unfortunately, it looks like we've lost our race leader's camera, but just because we lost his doesn't mean we don't have a shot here as we go on board with Marino Reyes. Trying to chase down the race leader. Marino Reyes, a really, just a fantastically neat story. This guy is out of Miami, Florida, a first-generation American born of Cuban parents. He is an orthotist and prosthetist. I know what those are. My brother is one. He makes prosthetics and orthotics for amputees. Started racing in 1995. Spec Corvette lap record holder at Homestead Miami Speedway. This his third season in the Spec Corvette Series.
That's really cool. Way to live the American dream.
Yes, and quite frankly, when you tell us who you are, we can talk about you and stuff like that.
Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Yes. Jerry DiPiero checking in the comments here, showing Marino and Victor some love. Sebastian Kinder checking in. What's the length of the race? It's either 25 or 30 minutes. I will check the schedule on it, but we're only about 8.5 minutes in. There's still a long way to go in this one, as Ken Mantovani holds a 2-second lead over Marino Reyes. Mark Burton, the 222, up to the second position, looking for his second podium of the day. Now we're also starting to see a little bit of faster traffic start to make its way through as well.
Yeah, we're going to see a bigger pace disparity at a track like this with some of the cars that have a lot more downforce and horsepower to work with.
Yeah, I mean...
like I said, there's a lot of places where you can let those things open up and eat.
Yeah, I mean, Rasmus Lind, that's a name that should be familiar to those of you that are fans of the Road to Indy ladder. Rasmus Lind is overall leader. Last lap time, 2 minutes 10.345. Last lap for our race leader, Ken Mantovani, 224.989. It's a 15 second a lap difference from the fastest overall cars to our guys that are down here in the ST3 classes. We may have lost Marino's on board as well. Still have Cecil Stevens here, though. Was looking forward to having an onboard with Bruce Griffin as well. Lost mechanical issues, we'll say it that way, in yesterday's test and tune sessions. Unfortunately, not able to run this weekend. Just taking a look here to answer the question for Sebastian Kinder. This race is scheduled for 30 minutes in duration, so just past the 1/3 mark here. And unfortunately, it looks like we're down to this is the only camera we have left. We've also lost Marino Reyes onboard camera.
Thankfully, this is the camera with all the fancy smancy telemetry and time and scoring, so if we were going to be down to one camera, it's the camera we want.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a look in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you can see the work that goes into driving one of these cars, and even the vibrations on the hands of Cecil Stevens here. This is, I'm going to say, not an easy drive around this place.
Yeah, there's not an easy corner on this track. Even those that look easy, there's some sort of little thing that you have to be mindful of. Like, this section is difficult here because if you take too much curb on the inside, it will hook the tire and will kind of throw you off of the apex and will really mess up your entry into the next part of it.
Yeah.
And this might be the most... go ahead, read the...
Okay, I was going to say, well, Oli is checking in here saying, excellent in-car video, especially from the Sentinel systems. Yes, these are absolutely phenomenal. Actually, to the point that we're looking at a couple of them possibly for some of our other real-world shows that we do, because they are so darn good at getting a signal out. I am thrilled with what we see here as Cecil absolutely flying down the front stretch under the Cadillac Bridge down into turn one. One of the things I love about Sebring, James, you can take turn one a lot of different ways and still be successful with it. It really is just a matter of how it sets you up for turn two here.
Yeah, this is actually the section I had in mind when I was talking about the deceptive. Look at the insides of this little section. It seems rounded, but it's not. You have a little part on the curbing where it kind of bends inward. Like the apex is later. You have to look and see when the corner starts to curve at a more extreme rate. And you kind of have to wait and cut when you see that. Otherwise, if you're just kind of following the curbing around, it's not perfectly round. So you need to wait until you get to that later part and then hit that. That will give you a much better exit through the section. And it's hard to see that until you've run it a couple times and you notice that and you go, oh, this is how I have to take the corner. Especially since that's one of the premier passing zones on the circuit going into the tight hairpin. And if you can get a much better run through, that's going to be a huge advantage if you're battling someone for position.
Well, and when you're talking about multi-class racing, that really comes into play a lot, because if you're in a zippy little, Spec Miata, something like that, you attack the corner differently than in a 3,200-pound Corvette that, quite frankly, is known for making a lot of horsepower and not having maybe the greatest brakes in the world. I mean, these cars do have racing brakes on them, but it's still a lot more weight to drive and stop. You really have to approach the corner differently, and you have to be aware of what's around you and how they may have to approach the corners as well.
Exactly. Like, you can take the corners a lot harder in a... Wow. Now, how's that for size disparity for race cars? Look at that. That thing barely comes up to the middle of the door. Yeah, how's that for multi-class racing? But yeah, like the Miatas can take the curbing a lot heavier. Corvettes can take it pretty heavy too, but this isn't exactly curbing you want to clobber. It's not flat. It's not easy. Like, look at how high up these curbs are in the air. Like, if you hit it wrong, if you take too much, it will upset the car. That's what makes this circuit so fascinating for the 12 hours, is you have a whole bunch of cars with the prototypes that do not like curbs at all. And then you have GT cars that can take the curbing a lot harder. See, look.
Yes, I was going to say, one of the prototypes zipping through and disappearing into the sunset. It really is fun to watch. And before we get too deep into this here, James, do have to say a big thank you to all the sponsors of the Spec Corvette Series, and we'll get their logos up here on the screen for you as well. Nankang Motorsport Tires, the presenting sponsor of the Spec Corvette Series. Penske Racing Shocks, Willwood Brakes, Track Spec Motorsports, Improved Racing, Turn 1, Sparco, G-Stream Aerodynamics, and TPS Motorsports. We'll tell you all about them at the conclusion of the show here, but still about 13 minutes left in this one. Cecil Stevens is your race leader. Ken Mantovani is your race leader. We're on board with Cecil Stevens. Currently running in the second position is the 222 of Mark Burt. Marito Reyes runs third. Paul Davison fourth. And Victor Leo completes the top five. Cecil Stevens, 5th in the Spec Corvette standings, as the 6 of Paul Davison is one of the non-Spec Corvette ST3s that are out with these guys. Tell you what, Cecil looks almost comfortable in there. Nice Sunday drive around Central Florida. At least as comfortable as you're going to get anyway.
Pretty much. There is no such thing as comfortable talking about the Sebring International Raceway.
Well, and you can see the speed difference. I mean, he's up already over 90 miles an hour. 120 miles an hour is kind of in the range of the top speed that I've seen thus far. But you're having to get this car, okay, 115 mile an hour, woed down to 45 to make the corner. It shows you, we talk about how the cars don't like to stop, but the Willwood brakes do a fantastic job of making it happen, though.
Yeah, like these brakes are working overtime because this is not an easy car to get mowed down. You know, they're heavy, they're full of horsepower. You know, top tier American cars such as this aren't exactly known for their handling. We Americans prefer to focus on the loud vroom vroom portions of automaking, and we look at handling and go, what's a turn? So you've got a lot of work trying to get it to where you can actually get this car slowed down for the corner. So it's handling as good as you're gonna get, especially since you have all these bumps that no race car likes. Like, no race car loves to go over really bumpy terrain. So,
well, and that's where the Penske racing shocks come into play. We talk about limited modifications, but there are some race-specific parts that these guys are allowed to put on and do put on the race cars. Putting a set of tunable Penske shocks on these race cars is really important to going fast. You need the suspension to work appropriately with the Nankang tires and even those Willwood brakes, quite frankly. That's really what makes you quick around these places, or at least helps you go quicker. This car is a stock Corvette. I would put in the ballpark of probably 3+ minutes around a place like Sebring. Whereas once you put some of the race components on it, you really can start to, well, quite frankly, have some fun with them.
Yeah, like it's because of all those components that you're able to do something like this. Like, this car would probably be, I don't want to say undrivable without it, but the high-tech technology in a Penske racing shock, Willwood brakes, and the Nankang tire helps you survive out here.
That is so close, wheel to wheel, with one of the Spec Miatas.
It's so difficult to go side by side through this section too.
So now 22 minutes are on the board. We're down to 8 minutes remaining. Still Ken Mantovani at the front of the field. It is tight, though. Mark Burt down to 1/4 of a second last time by the start-finish line. Burt going to be followed in the Spec Corvette order by Cecil Stevens and Frank Reinhardt. That'll be your top 5. Joel McGee, Alex Garcia, Marino Reyes, and James Davison will round out the field here. Alex Garcia on pit lane, as is the 9 of James Davidson. And these guys will be back here again tomorrow. We'll have one race lined up on Sunday. The comment coming in from Eduardo Reyes, where did Marino go? Well, we lost the camera from Marino a little while ago. And quite frankly, that's the difference between shooting with the phones that these guys mount inside the car. That's how a lot of these drivers do it. It's just a cell phone connection to us, and unfortunately the camera dropped out. Don't know what happened, though. Marino currently running in the 9th position overall, in the ST3 class anyway. It looks like it'll be 7th overall in Spec Corvette.
What did happen to him though? Because I thought if I was paying attention, which I probably wasn't, but I could have sworn that towards the beginning of the race he was sitting in P2.
Yeah, he was at the front and battling with Victor Leo and Ken Manavani, and then something happened. We saw that car go off the pace, and he just absolutely dropped like a rock. As we have a new race leader at the start-finish line. Mark Burke gets around Ken Manavani, and it's already a 3.3 second lead.
Wow, Ken must have had it off somewhere. That's because like a lap ago he was still running in second, and to have already a 3-second lead, that's either a mistake or he found himself in extra gear, Fast and Furious style.
Yeah, Victor Leo coming across the line now. He is up to the 4th position. And Cecil Stevens setting a new personal best lap of the race last time by, 2 minutes 28.885. He's going to be about 4 seconds back of Victor Leo running in the 4th position, but Leo having a great run, starting this race towards the back. He's up 6 after starting in the 10th position, making the driver change, with Victor getting into the car for this second race here on Saturday. Waiting to see when Frank Reinhardt crosses the line. He's going to be about 42 seconds back here of Cecil Stevens and a minute 38 back of the race leaders. Nice that we kind of have a rear view mirror to check and look for any traffic that is approaching the car of Cecil Stevens that we're following along with here, as we are now inside of 5 minutes remaining. And the other big thing, James, is the clock runs out on the overall leader, not on this particular class. So depending on when you cross the line in relation to the overall leader, that will dictate how many laps you're going to get. But we got a battle on our hands now. Cecil Stevens has caught 4th place Victor Leo.
And he caught him at a high rate of, like, out of nowhere.
Yeah, he was 4 and change seconds back. Whoa. Oh, wow! That's letting it all hang out.
Now that's working them Dan King tires.
Well, I didn't see any smoke off the tires, so we can't totally say big wiggle territory, but Cecil Stevens making the move. He's able to get clear. Oh, but a big dive by the 50. Wow, they almost made contact into sunset.
I don't know if that was almost.
Victor Leo's going to be right there, though. He's going to have a look to the right side down the front stretch. Excuse me, left side. And Leo able to come back is the other right. What a battle between Victor Leo and Cecil Stevens with just a couple of minutes remaining. I love the fact that Leo's car has a license plate on it. And we're seeing checkered flags in the air. This is the final lap of the race for these guys. Mark Burt now with a 5.9 second advantage over Ken Mantovani. This is the fight for the third position on the Spec Corvette podium.
No, he's looking. He's not going to be close enough.
No, I think this move's going to come into sunset. Wow! Really dives it deep into the corner.
He made him blink. He showed the nose and he made him blink. Here we go.
We don't see the 54. Barely now see it in the rearview mirror.
Last of the late breakers, and they're still going to be side by side. Oh boy. It's not easy to be side by side through here.
Leo able to clear. And now it's the long run down to the final little set of twisty bits before you get to sunset. You almost have to stay in line here.
Yeah,
I say almost.
Set up the move going into sunset. We saw how much Leo lit the rear up dirt tracking right here. Let's see if he does it again. Oh, much better exit from Leo. Oh, this is going to be a stint of a lifetime if Cecil's going to get him.
Leo covers the inside lane up. Stevens looks outside. Into sunset for the final time.
Oh, I can't quite clear him. He's still there.
Oh, they're almost touching again. Does Stevens try the crossover? Oh, he's got to get off a little bit. Here he comes, drag race to the line. Who's it going to be? Cecil Stevens picks up third in Spec Corvette over Victor Leo by 37 thousandths of a second.
Oh my God, what a brawl.
What a finish.
That was a thing of beauty.
Oh my goodness. That was wild.
Oh my God.
Let's get some of the comments up here. Only checking in. Cecil's not only a great driver, but a great guy too. Super mechanic. Helped me work at my car when a bunch of us were racing at NCM in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Seb Kinder just saying, lose. Get the sirens. Dive bombers spotting. These guys are committing. Yes, that is true. Man alive, what a fantastic show. West Coast, it's time to nut up and ball out, boys, because this was an absolutely incredible race that we got out of Spec Corvette here in Sebring. Mark Burt gets the win in the 222, rounds out the day with a first and a second. Ken Mantovani does the same thing, but in the reverse order. Claimed the win in race number 1. Race number 2, Mantovani comes home in the second position, and Cecil Stevens in the 17 comes home third. Victor Leo runs 4th, and Frank Reinhardt will complete the top 5. Joel McGee finishing 6th is the final car to finish on the racetrack. 6th place will go to Marino Reyes, and James Davidson will round out the field in 7th. Oh my goodness. Wow. Yes, I agree. That was incredible.
Yeah, Jerry was right. Victor sure put on a show. Like, watching him absolutely power slide was a thing of beauty to watch. Like, what a brawl. That was like two heavyweight champions just going punch for punch in the last lap and a half.
Yes, that again. I think that's putting it pretty mildly here. But man, alive, just what an absolutely incredible show out of these guys. Is we're going to see the camera pop back up here. Whew. Catch your breath, because we're going to have more of it coming here. But that's going to be in just a little bit here. Sebring International Raceway, you again put on an incredible show for the Spec Corvette Series presented by Nankang Tires. But before we take off, we first need to say a huge thank you to everybody that helps make these shows possible here on the National Racing Network, including G-Stream. You can find them online at g-stream.com. Also, Improved Racing. Check them out online at improvedracing.com. Penske Racing Shocks. We talked a little bit about them here today, and quite frankly, they were really good to these race cars. You can find them online at PenskeShocks.com. Sparco providing some of the safety equipment here, SparcoUSA.com, the website address on them. Also, a big thank you to TPS Motorsports. You can find them online at TPSMotorsports.com. Turn1Steering.com for all of your Spec Corvette steering components. And Willwood Brakes, they are online at Willwood.com. Also, TrackSpec Motorsports. Well, TrackSpecMotorsports.com is that one. And you can get all of the kind of the aero bits that you are allowed to play with, quite frankly, along with a whole lot of other stuff, too. They're doing some really neat work with some Ferraris as well. We're looking forward to that one. And obviously, Nankang Motorsport Tires. You can find them online at nankangmotorsport.com, the presenting sponsor of the Spec Corvette Series. With that, it's time for us to get the heck on out of here. Ole Thorderson asking how long until the Sonoma race. Not very long. The schedule is currently, I believe, about 4:30, 4:45. I would say get the next feed up and ready to go, because you're not going to want to miss this one. Jerry DiPiero is checking in saying, thank you, guys. Thank you very much for checking in. We appreciate everybody that was checking in the comments and all that stuff as well. Does mean a lot to us, and quite frankly, gives James and I something to talk about here. But with that, time for us to get the heck on out of here, at least for a very short while, until we're ready to come back on the air. For James Watson and everybody here at the National Racing Network that makes these shows happen, my name is Chris Graham. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with us, and we will talk to you all in just a little bit. See you then, everybody.